Hi everyone, it's George, one of the hosts here at Thom-Cast. As you may have been aware, the show's been through a brief hiatus whilst we gauge reaction to the first 3 episodes, not to mention real life's been taking a bit of a toll on us. Nonetheless, we're overjoyed with the reaction to the podcast and hope to continue better than ever. Before the show proceeds, I'll just let you know this episode's a little bit different. Our first section consists of a short interview with the brilliant DieselD199, as recorded by Mayoorhan. Before there's a section featuring TARDIS rescue, KnapfordHarbour, Mayoorhan and myself discussing the adventure begins. Because of this, the transitions may seem a little bit jarring, but hopefully it won't come across as too bad. Thanks in advance, and on with the show.
Hello everybody, due to reasons of time zones and the like, we weren't able to record the entire podcast as one with our guest, and we really wanted this particular guest on because he's really quite special, and so it would just be me and the guest. Sadly, George's throat is dying and Matt's in America, so he's more than likely sleeping in it this morning. So I'd like to introduce our guest for Thom-Cast episode 4, which is Mr. DieselD199.
Hello everyone, how are you?
And fair to say this is a bit of an honour, having probably one of the biggest one of the biggest Thomas YouTubers out there on our little podcast is already putting it quite high. And you've been in the Thomas community for quite a while, I guess?
Yeah, I first started uploading videos to YouTube in 2008, and I was probably in amongst the community from 2007, I would say.
Okay, so clearly you made a big name for yourself. Was it 20,000 subscribers, which is a lot?
Yeah, I've got about 21,000 subscribers at the moment, and about, 35 million views, I think? So
You have a very unique style compared to most other YouTubers, and I don't think it's been replicated at all, which I think is particularly impressive, because usually there's this sort of style that someone starts off and then everyone starts doing it, like sort of Trains remakes, or you get the idea, Wooden Railway, etc., but your style is very unique, and no one's ever tried to do it, and I guess that shows you how good you are at it.
Thank you. Oh, well, I mean, doing videos with the Tomy Trackmaster play rail thing is certainly something that you do see around a lot. But for me, before I was making videos for YouTube, I started out watching people like Train Lover 476 and Miss Oliver and Blossom, and Captain Punjab was also another one, and so they were, for me, they were my inspirations a long time ago, and so
I remember those people.
Yeah, back in the day, back when YouTube, when you was quite a different place.
Yeah.
But
cough,
I mean,
Google cough.
Yeah. It actually makes me feel quite old, to be honest. But I think
it does to everyone.
Yeah, but over time, I guess I've sort of molded my own style here on YouTube. And actually, this year I've been doing the Thomas and Friends shorts for 5 years. So, in the life of the internet, that's a pretty long time.
Yeah, and the shorts are really quite wonderful and wacky. They're really unique, and they're really well done. And I like the sort of whole sense of continuity that they have, which is kind of continuity, but not really, but kind of at the same time.
Yeah, my inspiration, I guess, for that was, I don't know if you've seen the Mishima series Red versus Blue. Have you seen that?
No.
Oh, well, that's that was done with, in Halo, the video game. And the first couple of seasons of that, you would have episodes that could sort of stand alone on their own right, and then there was sort of like an overarching story.
So what would you say, sort of, like, how would you come up with a short? Is it just an idea that comes into your head that you immediately note down?
For me, it really does vary. sometimes for a short, I will just have in my head an idea for just a specific joke. And I actually have a list on my computer of, things I've thought up over time. And sometimes if I'm stuck for an idea, I'll go and take a look at that and maybe choose something from it. And then sometimes I will craft like the entire short around that one joke. And the other thing is I'll take a specific scene from the actual series. Perhaps there's a funny line in there, or there's something that I think I can... really make fun of, like one of the shorts I did, I think it was short 18. I just love that line from Thomas and the Guard, you're too fat, you need exercise. It's just, that was done in, 1984 or whatever it was, the actual show. And for a character in a children's television show to say that in 2015, I think would be quite something different. So, that's always an interesting thing to then take and make fun of. But it's interesting, I guess, how in the creative process things can grow. So, you take the Halloween short I did, short 36. That started out, I just had written down a note. It had a sign nailed to it, beware of the Slender engine, which I just thought up at some point, several months earlier. And then I wrote the opening scene and then just built on it and built on it and built on it. And then you've got, the entire 17-minute short. So
yeah, I love the fact that you're not afraid to make fun of absolutely anything. Like, you can make fun of the show, the fans, like yourself, and it's just sort of not being afraid. One of my favorite lines is the bit when Thomas is having a dream about everything being exactly the same but wooden railway, and he wakes up and says, cheap merchandising. And
yes, yeah,
just little moments like that.
I did wonder if I might annoy some of the members of the wooden railway community, because I don't tend to get involved in, there's a lot of drama in the Thomas and Friends community. I think we should
tread lightly at this point. George will edit it out, but yeah.
Of course. I have noticed that amongst the wooden railway community in particular, they can be a bit dramatic, and so I did wonder whether they'd have anything to say about that. But of course, it's all in good fun, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think another one of my favorite moments was the Duck Demon short, where it's they consult Edward, and he's like, it's like, you need to give me some form of payment. I'll give you Percy. Done. What?
Yeah. For me, actually, one of the real difficulties in doing the show is sort of trying to figure out how do you strike a balance between the older audience and the younger audience. Because, it's very... And, of course, how do you take into account the different sort of expectations of everyone? Some of the things which I would never consider to be curse words or whatever, things like "oh my god" or "god damn it." I don't in any way consider that, perhaps that's just my particular cultural context, to be in any way sort of offensive. But then you get people who comment and say that they don't like that or something. So it's always very difficult to draw that line, because I find that comedy is particularly difficult to do when you're
trying to please everyone.
And for me, I guess, you look at some of the older videos when I was a bit younger, a bit less aware of all this sort of stuff, and they're obviously, I've toned them down since then. And the thing is, at the moment, I guess my guideline for it is The Simpsons, which, I sort of grew up as watching it as a kid, right? It was sort of like background noise to me, and I never thought of it as being particularly funny. But as I've gotten older, you go back and you rewatch these episodes, and there's just this whole other level of humor that you just never understood before. Right, and that is really, really funny and really, really clever. But you just, as a kid watching it, that just flies right over your head. You don't see any of it. You don't know what they're talking about necessarily, and yet it all makes sense to you. And so that's what I would like to be able to do, to sort of have two levels of humor, and that it would be, broadly appropriate.
Yeah, I think the perfect example of that from The Simpsons, and I know this is a Thomas podcast, but let me go off on a tangent. It's the episode where grandpa falls in love with someone and she ends up dying while he's on the safari with the Simpson family, and then his friend goes up to him and says, her left ventricle burst. And for those that don't know what a left ventricle is, it's a valve in the heart, or a chamber in your heart. And he said, oh, she didn't die of a broken ventricle, she died of a broken heart. And I never got that as a kid, and now I do biology. It's just, oh my god, that's hilarious. Yeah. But
it really is. It's very clever writing, and it's very difficult to emulate.
Yes. So I think we need to move on to the elephant in the room, the purple background home advertising. Yeah, you got nominated for the Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Award, and that's, oh my god, that's awesome.
It is pretty exciting. I mean, I think I'm the most surprised. You know.
Just what was it like? Did you just get a call from Nickelodeon going, we've nominated you? How does it work? It's just so.
Yeah, well, actually, it wasn't a call. It was a tweet.
Oh, right.
It was on Twitter. I got up in the morning and I went on my phone, and I'd actually had a very interesting week. I'd done an article for a newspaper in Australia. The second biggest news media conglomerate was doing an article on YouTubers, and so some interesting things were happening. And then suddenly I've got this tweet from Nickelodeon Australia, and they say, oh, can you follow us so we can send you a direct message? So of course I did that, and then they say, oh, what's your email address? We've got some exciting news. And a couple minutes later, I get this email with big picture in it saying, you've been nominated for the Kids' Choice Awards. And I'm thinking, what on earth is this? Is this someone trolling me? I mean, and
yeah.
Of course I went and checked the account and everything like that, and it was a very surreal moment. It didn't fully sink in at first, and I actually went I was like, this is pretty cool. And then I went and played. I played a video game for 3 hours.
Oh, okay.
Because
as you do.
It was, as you do. That was it didn't completely sink in, and then I went back and read the email again, and I had less than 24 hours. I had to provide them with some pictures of me and a short bio and a 30-second video. And so I ended up doing an all-nighter so I could get it all done and send it off to them. And then it was just quiet for a bit until they contacted me again to say, all right, well, we're going to start announcing everything from this date, and you should use this, and this, and engage with your fans from here on out. So
that is so awesome.
Yeah, it's very exciting. I mean, because I never, I've been doing this for a long time, and I've always been quite content, with my audience and the recognition that I just have within the Thomas the Tank Engine community, and I never thought of it going, beyond that. And so to have been nominated for a Kids' Choice Award, even if it is for the localized version in Australia and New Zealand, is fantastic. And
I can assure you everyone who's a fan of you is currently spam voting their fingers off.
It's going to be a very uphill battle. I'm not sure if you're familiar with some of my competition, but they are
Troye Sivan, cough.
Very big.
Troye Sivan.
Yeah,
3 million subscribers.
Troye Sivan.
And you're going toe to toe with him, and I'm just that should be enough, really.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's Jamie's World as well, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with her. She's got about 10 million likes on Facebook, so.
Yeah, I think this is. Well, it's going to be a fun month.
Stuff.
It's going to be a fun 20 days left. Fun 20 days left.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's about 20 days left.
But yes, this is awesome. And who knows where this could lead to? We could have this really it feels like it's putting us on a map. Even if it's a very small map, it's still a map, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, I definitely get what you mean. I mean, I think this is going to be a fantastic anniversary for Thomas and Friends.
Yeah,
I mean, when you consider everything that is happening this year, I mean, we've got The Adventure Begins. That's the US dub's already come out. There's the other special.
Sodor and the Legend of the Lost Treasure, which has the Arsdale engines, A-list celebrities on it.
Yes, indeed. I mean, I think that this is going to be a fantastic year for the entire Thomas the Tank Engine community.
This isn't even the sort of this isn't even the just never mind the official stuff. This doesn't even count the fan-made stuff that's probably going to be coming out this year. I mean, fans are just everywhere, just going all out, and that's just a beautiful thought.
Yeah, I mean, and when you think about it, it's only March. So it will be interesting to see what develops over, the course of the year.
So, that's pretty dang awesome, but I think we should be moving on now to our next section that we do with guests. So, Mr. DieselD199, for being, coincidentally by your username, a spam cam, you are hereby banished to the other railway. Wibbly, 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 wibbly. Yes, so the other railway is where we ask questions to our guests as if they were stranded on the other railway, hypothetically, not literally, though literally would be fun. If they're stranded there, what would they take with them Thomas-wise? So, I will bring up the questions now. And so, you are banished to the other railway, and choose one classic episode to take with you. So that counts from Series 1 to Series 7.
One classic episode. That is a tough one. I think I'll have to go with my what I think is probably my favorite episode, although it's always so hard to choose, and that's Haunted Henry from Season 5.
That's a very cool episode.
I definitely think so. It's definitely one of my favorites.
That really did well with the atmosphere, if I remember rightly. The whole.
Oh yeah, the music was fantastic. It was well lit, and the FX and the story. It was great, and it scared me as a kid too.
I remember Duncan Get Spooked scaring me more.
That image was terrifying.
That image. That was kids as well. Jesus.
Yeah. And the one with Boulder in it. Was it?
Rusty and the Boulder.
I can't remember. Yep. Rusty and the Boulder. Yeah.
Michael Bay had humble beginnings. Okay, next question. Next thing to take with you. One non-classic episode, so that's Series 8+, and you'll get bonus points for not choosing a Series 17 onwards episode. So one of the bad ones, basically.
Okay then.
You don't have to, of course.
This is something that I've got to think about. Season 8, 9, and 10. Those are the ones that really sort of stick out in my mind. I can't actually think of one off the top of my head. I have to say that the later seasons sort of blur together for me.
Yeah, I can
what I mean.
Imagine that, yeah.
So I can't really think of one that particularly stands out. I can...
Ooh.
Edward Strikes Out.
Yes, you did that. You did the narration for that for Percy Engine.
Percy Engine 619, yeah. I was actually talking to him about doing it, and I was like, is there any particular episode which you would like to do? And he's like, we'll do Edward Strikes Out. And I was like, yes, right? Because I do very much enjoy that episode. I don't know what it is particularly about it. It's just a very enjoyable episode. I understand that it's kind of
hated,
controversial.
For me, it's the episode itself isn't inherently bad. I just think Edward's sort of negative views towards Rocky, it could have been done better. It could have been done in a way that's more believable. So if they showed Rocky failing to do a job properly, and then Edward has his doubts, that would have worked better.
Well, I mean, I think that the characterization of the engine's pretty suffered up until recently.
Yeah. So that's your modern episode, and you are hereby heralded as the worst Thomas fan ever by the rest of the community. Okay, so one Railway series book. This includes Rev Audrey, Christopher Audrey. But yeah, one Railway series book.
One of the Railway series books.
I just had a thought. Do the annuals count? Because they're technically I'm going to ask George that later.
That's a good question. I don't actually know.
we won't count them for now, but yeah, just a Railway series book. 4 stories, the usual.
I think I might have to go with Enterprising Engines.
Or the user or the book? Hey!
The book. Although I'm a big fan of him too, so...
Yes, who isn't? But yes, that's good choice. I think you're now hereby reinstated as a Thomas fan after your last choice.
Okay.
So next section, one song. So this doesn't mean background music, this means like song with lyrics throughout the entire show's history.
A favourite song. Let me think. I suppose there are the ones that everyone likes, you know, Really Useful Engine, for example. I very much enjoy. If I'm to go for one that's perhaps less typical, I do like Troublesome Trucks.
That's a good song. It's very catchy.
Yeah, I thought that was one of the better ones from season 6 and 7, that era of songs. So I definitely very much enjoy that one. But I think most of the songs, you know, I think it's kind of hard to be completely objective because it's so clouded by nostalgia. You know how it is with music.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it's a good song. I think out of all the songs, that's probably the one that sounded best when it was redone for The Adventure Begins. I don't know. I think I like the redone version a tad bit more. Next section, and this is going on to what I was saying earlier. One Thomas movie. So there's Thomas and the Magic Railroad onwards.
Right, yeah, so I can't choose The Adventure Begins yet because I haven't seen that one. Let me think. I did very much like Calling All Engines, and that was interesting for me because it was actually the first bit of, you know, the hit entertainment era that I actually saw. And if it had been significantly worse, I don't know if I'd be sitting here talking to you today. So I very much did enjoy that. Tale of the Brave was pretty excellent. I think most people will agree with that.
Yeah. It's sort of... It feels like this new era of Thomas and Friends is happening in stages, if you take my meaning. Like, they didn't say, okay, we won't give our best work yet, we'll sort of build it up over a few years, and like with The Adventure Begins, they're really going all out. And I've just had a thought that from now on, all our guests for the movie they're going to take along is just going to respond with The Adventure Begins. I've just noticed that's going to be a repetitive thing. Anyway.
Oh no, that's definitely going to be the case, I think.
Okay, so second to last section, one piece of Thomas-themed merchandising. So this can be toys or a T-shirt or T-shirt. Yeah, Thomas merchandising, one thing.
I think I'd have to take my Tommy Thomas, to be honest. I owe a lot to him.
Your symbol of the show.
Yes, indeed.
And finally, the very last section, and the most odd one, because technically speaking, you can't take it with you. One character. Who would you have accompany you to the other railway?
Duncan.
Good thinking, because the other railway doesn't have narrow gauge bits, so you can...
if it was just any character, it would be... I just think that Duncan is hilarious.
Yeah.
You know, I can imagine that he would be the kind of friend you have, you know, that goes on these incessant rants about everything that they hate, and it's not done in a way that's annoying. It's just hilarious, you know?
He's just Scottish. It's just the thing Scottish people do. And now I've insulted Scottish people, oh lord.
But I mean, if it had to be a standard gauge engine,
which it doesn't, but yes, go on.
Okay then, all right. I would probably take perhaps Murdoch. I'd feel very safe on the other railway with Murdoch.
I'll take Sam if that's the case. If we're going with size.
Oh yeah.
I just love how big he is in comparison to Thomas. It's almost comedically large.
Oh yeah, I think it's well, at least it's just a merchandising only character.
Yeah, I mean they clearly didn't modify any of the routes because at the end of that clip, his roof goes through Mayoorhan Station.
Oh, does it?
Yeah,
I didn't actually notice that. The thing I find interesting about the show is that there's this constant progression. You know, Gordon was the fastest and the strongest, right?
Yep.
Then of course you've got Murdoch, who's stronger, and then then there's Spencer, then Connor and Caitlin, who are now faster than Gordon. And I'm looking forward to seeing just where this goes.
Yeah, that's a good shout actually. Even in the Railway series, they did that because Gordon got replaced by Pip and Emma, the high-speed trains.
Yeah. But I think that was over a much longer period of time, though.
Oh yeah. I think Thomas is a show that definitely feels like it's evolving now. It feels like it's going somewhere, rather than meandering aimlessly in circles.
I mean, this is one of the interesting things about Thomas and Friends and the Railway series as a whole, is that it's supposed to be, I guess, continuous. It's not just set in this one time.
Yeah, one
forever.
Isolated place.
Yeah,
and I think,
it's not just 1945 or whatever.
It's all very timeless, because you get these shows nowadays that always update themselves just to keep going. So you get Transformers. You've had Transformers, the original show, Transformers, etc. Power Rangers. Another example, Bob the Builder's gone through 5 different stages, and Thomas and Friends has always been Thomas and Friends. It hasn't changed at all.
Yeah, there's just the one canon, as convoluted as it becomes at times.
Yes, and The Adventure Begins certainly isn't helping with the convolution, but it is still amazing.
Yeah, well, I mean, so that's the interesting thing, though, is The Adventure Begins is sort of like a revision of parts of season 1.
Yeah, I think it's just a new retelling for the younger crowd.
Yeah.
Because, let's be honest, now there are 3 generations of Thomas fans. Those who heard Really Useful Engine, or the original, for the first time, those who heard the Magic Railroad version for the first time, and those that are now going to hear the Adventure Begins version for the first time. That's how we divide Thomas fans from now on.
Okay, according to which version of Really Useful Engine they heard first.
Yes.
Although, admittedly, I think the first 2 were pretty close together.
Yeah, I think just the THMR version had a male, adult backing singer, which the Adventure Begins version has as well. Ooh, that's weird.
Yeah. It was an interesting, because I have actually listened to it. It's the one thing that I've granted myself from The Adventure Begins before the UK version comes out and I buy the Blu-ray of it. But it was interestingly modulated, the singer's voice. I certainly found it interesting. But yet catchy in its own right.
Yeah, of course. It's more like bouncy, I think. It's less flowing, more separated and bouncy. But yes, I think we should draw this to a close. It's been an absolute honour having you on, and I hope to hear from you soon, and good luck with the KCA Awards.
Thank you very, very much for having me on your podcast. I think it's an excellent idea, and I'm looking forward to seeing where you guys take it.
Thank you very much.
Right, so now on to the main section of the podcast, where we are joined by Jake, who is known as KnapfordHarbour on YouTube, and Daniel, who is also known as TardisRescue on YouTube. So, guys, what do you do? And just so the audience know.
Well, I don't know.
Jake?
Do you want to go first, Dan, or shall I?
No, I think you should go first. Co-host Jake. Hello,
Okay,
welcome
I
to
can definitely
Sudrian Radio.
manage to co-host Dan.
Shut up, Dan!
To answer your question, guest Mayoorhan, I've been in the YouTube business, if you will, for a number of years. I think just about 6 or 7 or 8 now. I started out doing trains videos, and I'm still doing that to some degree of success. But more and more lately, I've been doing lots of music and just trying to make some Temesi tunes, if you will. And yeah, it's all been good fun.
So, Dan, who the hell are you?
Good question.
Who is TardisRescue?
This is the bit where you're allowed to let your ego inflate, by the way.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
I'm Daniel. I make lots of videos. Lots and lots of videos. I don't think that, look me up. That will probably give you a better idea of what I do and who I am, as opposed to me gabbling.
And so, on to the main topic of discussion, which is The Adventure Begins. Consider this our sort of
thoughts on the special as a whole. And so, yeah, guys, what do you think of it as a whole?
Oh, it was great. It was so good.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
But it's just sort of, would you call it a milestone in what the show's become, or is it just a really good way of celebrating the past, would you say?
It's certainly a very big step and a milestone. I don't see why it can't be both.
Yeah.
Because
without a doubt.
it's showing, it's a big, considering like 2-3 years ago we were getting awful stuff.
It's the Island Rescue.
Well, yeah.
That's 5 years ago now.
But we were getting, even like, we were getting, like, Race to the Rescue, for example. The highlight of a series was Percy and the Calliope, which is always slightly depressing. Right?
And let's be honest, too, that episode was only successful because it had the original theme at the end.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
So to go from that to something of genuine quality and
Goodness.
not for the fans, man. It's something that's written so much for the fans.
And it's not so much the fact that it's good, it's the fact that it's really just spectacular. It's not like it's not, okay, it's an improvement over what it was before. It is genuinely good on its own, not just compared to what came before it.
I think it finds that happy medium between appealing to the older fans and making an entertaining product that doesn't rip off the original adaptations of the stories.
I think it's, dare I say, I think it's better than the original, not just the adaptations of like series one. I think it's better than the original book. There, I said it. Fine, I'll leave. I'll leave. I'll feel disgraced now. Yeah, I know. I genuinely think the writing in this was that good. So it's
go on.
I was just going to say the dialogue, especially, feels a lot more natural now and less forced. I mean, aside from 1 or 2 moments, for me, that one moment was when Edward was helping Gordon up the hill at the beginning. I thought it was a nice throwback, but it did feel a bit forced. Mm-hmm. But aside from that, I think the dialogue is great, especially with the Fat Controller, who's
that's
the most entertaining character of them all.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. He's been let off his leash, as it were.
Which I think helps with the fact that Keith Wickham, who is the better Fat Controller voice, is now in the American dub, which means his lines are recorded before the animation.
Yeah, so it's actually designed for him.
That, and because the stories are less cookie cutter now, in terms of the dialogue, the actors, I think, are having a lot more fun with the delivery of lines as well.
Oh yeah.
I don't think that really applies with an adaptation of a book, though.
Well, yeah, fair enough.
Well, yeah.
But, I'm just bringing it back to The Adventure Begins, guest George.
Well...
But you would say, though, because, like, as much as it's an adaptation, there's like, extra lines that the Fat Controller has. Like, either are in the script or Keith Wickham came up with on the fly, but they're really they just add, like, a little bit of, not so much realism, but just more fun.
Oh, no, they add more depth to what is an actual full cast piece as opposed to a storybook.
Yeah.
And what's more, the American dub, like with the American actors, there's no way you could have pulled something like that off. You cannot say, "Come on, lads, let's go." You know,
yeah, we were talking about it earlier, weren't we, Jake? About like in the Saturn of Henry bit, where the fact was, "Pull harder, stop moving," and we talked about how the American we're going, "Pull harder."
He's not moving.
And then in the UK dub, you'd have Keith Wickham imitating the Americans' attempt.
And he's trying his best to make it sound good, but it doesn't work.
It just doesn't work.
But yes, also with the American dub, we've got new voices for Thomas and James, interestingly enough.
Oh, the James voice is so much better.
It feels more...
It hasn't grown on me just yet. I don't know.
Oh, no,
we'll see.
It's more bearable than the original. It's more bearable than what the James voice was before, which was just far too deep.
He's right.
Yeah.
Well, Thomas fans prefer it.
I still think the weak point in the US cast is Henry.
I think character, generally, is Henry.
It's evolved into something
it's not... He's just so pathetic.
Yeah.
And that's something that's part of the thing, a part of his character now in the new era. So it's not something that can be fixed easily. It's not like Edward being remade into an old character, because he's always been old.
Yeah.
It's like that Henry has become more and more pathetic.
Henry and Toby.
And I think it's come back. It's like on the Earth Coast, it was like he's a thoroughbred, but they've taken thoroughbred to mean he's old and sick
But getting back
That's
onto
not-
The Adventure Begins, that
That's what
said
Dan-
about Henry, I think it is quite interesting. They sort of gave him a mini arc within the story
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
time round.
I think it's
feel
also
like they
nice how it sort of conjoined with Thomas's arc.
Yeah.
So it's like they both started out as weaker engines, and then as Thomas grew stronger, he helped Henry overcome his fears.
Yeah.
So
You see Thomas
I-
and Henry becoming friends this time round, where
Yeah.
I don't really think he did well. He
There was
tried-
lots of- there were lots of nice things that happened in The Adventure Begins that didn't happen in the original story.
I
Yeah.
wasn't a fan of like the last scene in the sheds with Henry and Thomas kind of goads him out to make him not afraid of the rain anymore. I didn't get it. I wasn't a fan of that bit.
I didn't like how Henry's wheels were going backwards, yet he was moving forwards.
Oh, we'll
Now
have to
you-
put that on the goof section then. Oh,
Oh,
jeez.
And now
whiz,
you'll
man.
you'll never be able to unsee that.
Mm.
I hadn't noticed, honestly.
What I thought was interesting, or not interesting, was slightly different, is how they changed the stories around so it always was from Thomas's perspective. Thomas was our identification figure. So even the crash, which in the books you never see actually. It's one of those things you imagine you've seen, or at least you have the impression of seeing it. But what actually happens is it says, James is off the line, and then it cuts to him in a field looking a bit sad. But
Now we actually see him get into that field in the first place.
we see him get into, we see it all from Thomas's point of view, and the way they do it was incredibly effective.
Intense
Yeah.
as well.
I really liked the runaway sequence.
Yeah.
I like the fact. Oh, sorry, I'm going to say it anyway. I like the fact. I've realised the other day the reason that James nosedives, that always annoyed me when I first watched it. It still annoys me now. But it's quite clearly because he's only got brake blocks on his back wheels.
Yeah.
And the reason that he's only got brake blocks on his back wheels is because if they didn't, they had them on the rest of them, he'd just be a blazing inferno.
Yes.
Yeah. But I was going to say I liked how the runaway for this for The Adventure Begins had a very similar setup to the film Unstoppable, which is PG-13. It was a PG. It's a very dark, mature film, and in that it has a very similar moment where they're trying to couple the train up to the back. They successfully couple it up to the back, and they slow it down just in time before it reaches the curve to avoid a crash. Whereas in Thomas and Friends, the preschool show, the main character fails to couple up, and a crash happens, like a horrific crash.
But
And I was
in Unstoppable, the train was carrying flammable and dangerous things that would kill a town.
Hey, James had some tankers on his train. You don't know.
James's drive was really relaxed in that entire runaway. He's like in the yard, like, hey guys.
I thought the guard was pretty relaxed.
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't
they
know,
only
like Thomas was like really just edging him to do something where he's just sort of. I really felt like the guard was kind of, as a railway person, pretty incompetent in that.
I don't know, it's quite difficult to couple up a moving thing.
No, but it's not the fact that everything he did was Thomas just telling him to do it.
To be fair,
Yeah.
Thomas is the main character, and it's not.
Yeah,
It's not
it's
really
a fact
about
that-
the guard.
It's all back to from his viewpoint. I don't think if I was a guard, I would go, yes, the natural thing to do at this juncture is to couple up another engine to my runaway train. Let's endanger more lives.
I remember something similar that happened in Bincombe Tunnel 30 years ago.
Find co-host Jake, that was 33 years ago.
Of course.
What I found really interesting, or I didn't expect, was I don't know if you know what I mean. I don't even know if I know what I mean. But the sound
Okay,
mixing on James's crash, for a second, kind of all the sound cut out, and it sounded really, really intense for a kid's.
No,
There was
kid-oriented.
absolutely a Transformer sound effect when that happened.
Yeah.
There's no denying that.
What was really terrifying was it's after James crashed, they show like this tracking shot of the trucks just piling into the crash, and they're laughing their heads off in a really manic way. And there's just something just terrifying about the thought that they're just destroying themselves and they're giggling as they do it. I don't know. It's just
The fact
watch that scene again. You'll never
the
think of
fact
it
that the
in
camera
vain.
didn't cut when you saw James sort of coming off the line, I think that was really effective.
Yeah. I think Don Spencer, the guy who directed this, he's a very good visual director. I think all of ARC's directors are very good at telling the story through the visuals.
about the sound effects and how it sort of cuts out stuff. Imagine if that had just been done totally realistically, though. That would have been so. That would have been even more. That would have been even worse. The fact that it has the sound cutting out reminds you that it's only a film.
Cinematic.
Yeah.
Whereas if it had been proper sound effects and you'd heard him just screaming as he crashes,
Yeah.
that would have been properly creepy.
Well, yeah.
As creepy as James screaming into a pile-up would have been. But they still managed to retain humour in it, because they cut back to Thomas getting the breakdown train, and then they cut back to James getting his face licked by a cow.
Yeah.
So what do you all think of the new characters who weren't in the original stories? Jerome, Judy, the breakdown train, and Glenn, who.
Which one do you want us to talk about first?
Jerome, Judy, maybe because they were characters.
Yeah, they were actually, important.
They did something.
I-
They were great.
I liked that they didn't just they didn't repaint Rocky or something.
Yeah.
I like that they did something about it and made something.
So the merchandise will probably be repaints of Rocky.
Probably, maybe, I don't know.
But
The one thing that I've noticed is that they are more than willing, especially with the Wooden Railway exclusives and now some of the characters in the special, they are more than willing to create fully rendered, nice-looking models for one-off appearances, which is interesting. So that's never really been a thing. It's always been kind of a bare bones. We've got Stanley and Rosie, so we need to have them in every shot, or every backing shot to kind of fill it
just to
up.
prove that they exist.
Yeah. So it's kind of a different philosophy that they're going on with now, which is interesting. But no, it was good. I am sad that I probably won't ever see Glyn again, because I think there's definitely a character there.
Yeah.
But I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not.
She may
I'm
sound
not-
like Scarlowy, but there's something there.
I've
My
been ranting.
name is Glyn.
I've been ranting to Dan about this. I feel like we need more Glenn, because so far the only piece of merchandise they've done is a Trackmaster one, which looks like a brick with a face.
You're waiting for Bachman Glyn, aren't you?
Yes,
George?
that's what I'm saying.
That's what the Bachman Scarlowy actually is. It's just a Bachman glitch.
It could be a light and sound one featuring his most famous catchphrase.
My
My name is Glyn.
Mr. Pot.
I'm not Mr. Coffee Pot.
I thought he was going to have this, I don't know why, but when I first heard that Glyn was going to be in it, I thought he was going to have some sort of mentor role to Thomas. Boy, was I wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe in a sequel.
The adventure continues.
He'll turn up in the Thomas Again version, and he'll be like, "You know what you shouldn't do? Take on water from the river." Disappears into
Don't
the
race bosses. Bosses are faster than you. Sounds about right.
I am confused about Glyn. As I said, there's only been the Trackmaster one, but he didn't appear at all. So you'd think if he was a character created for merchandise, which his cameo seemed like it was, they'd release more versions of him. So I don't know if he's going to appear again. I don't know how he would appear again. Unless...
Well, this is the first time Farquhar has appeared, so they could have just left him here all this time. Because Farquhar hasn't actually appeared before in the CGI era, so it's possible that Glyn's just been there.
Was I the only one who was slightly freaking out that the Farquhar kind of station layout is eerily reminiscent of the Railway series counterparts?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I thought
That
it
was
was
nice.
cool more than eerie.
Yeah, that was good. That was definitely good.
Yeah. Actually, well, I guess we'll do questions later, but I might as well bring it up, seeing as we're on the subject. And as you were saying, someone asks, if there was a follow-up, which books would you like it to see retell?
I would say Mountain Engines or Very Old Engines.
I don't know. I feel like they're probably going to be going in order. Although, the best, I don't know, branch line engines, I would say. That would make a very interesting bit of there. Branch line engines coupled with tramway engines, maybe. So.
Did you
I'm only saying Mountain Engines because the location is just so different. I would like to see a film that's just cut off from the rest of Sodor, you know?
I think mountain engines would make a good episode. I don't know about a full thing, because there's only so much you can do, really.
Yeah.
You'd
have lots of beautiful shots, but it doesn't have, in my opinion, sort of sustain itself.
Well, one of the big key points, or sort of the most discussed points about The Adventure Begins, has been the music. So what did you guys think?
It was so out there and so not afraid to work with what it was, but not afraid to be itself as well.
I think what was best about it is that it wasn't the original themes ripped straight from the classics. It was sort of mixed in with original music and done again in its own way. Sort of.
Yeah. It became something.
It felt new. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
it's things like that they're obviously just put in for the fans, I think.
Well,
Well, I don't know. I mean, I suppose I guess.
No, I do think that the Fat Controller's sort of cue was played a bit too much.
Well,
I don't know how much. I didn't realize how much I missed that until I heard it again.
Yeah.
So when you hear it in the CGI episode for the first time, it's like the most surreal thing, because then you think, oh no, someone's fan edited it. Oh no, it's the actual thing.
Do you think this sort of integration of, sort of to an extent, the original themes will carry on into later seasons? Would you like it to carry on?
I kind of want the original themes to stay in these. If they do more of these sort of throwback, flashback film things, I kind of want the classic music to stay in that. I'd rather have the new stuff be completely original and sort of the throwbacks be the throwbacks.
I agree entirely. I feel like if it was just kind of the staple of the series to mix the old and the new, I think that the old stuff would it would diminish a bit.
Yeah, it would get boring after a while.
I think that too in this special and in in Series 18, Robert and Peter Hartsoff really they've shown what they can do now. I mean, not to say that all of their other things weren't good, but I don't know. I didn't really have the same reverence for the music from, say, season 15 or 16 or so versus what's been done in the last two seasons. Duck's theme, the new kind of music and a lot of the incidental stuff. It's just really good, and I think they certainly can hold their own. They don't need the older stuff to,
Case in point, the opening music, I thought that was brilliant with the swooping shots and Gordon taking the express. I thought that music was great on its own.
Yeah, that's gorgeous.
It's worth talking about the animation then, I guess, because that opening few shots. Well, no, would you consider that one shot? I mean, it's sort of.
No, it's not. It clearly changes. It clearly cuts.
Yeah, but It's so well done. It looks. Yeah. Do you guys think the animation's improved now? I mean, I know a lot of fans sort of seem to think that.
Animation quality itself is not something I'm that sort of looking out for, but you can tell that this time, they've changed the textures of the engines or something to make them look more shiny, like the classic models, which I thought was a good, cool idea.
There's so much more going on.
Yeah.
And not just with the engines, because they only have the first 5, which I thought was really cool.
The people
just
too,
the
Dan.
detail thing. Shut up, Jordan. We're about to get.
He's on a roll, damn it.
I was about to, when I'm practicing, the fact they only had 5 engines, and they were still making it look a very busy place.
Yeah.
But I think what's quite a blessing and a curse with the 5 engines, but you always have 4 of them together. I think there's a really useful engine that where Thomas is going and collecting his stuff. He's looking around, and goes, "Oh, it's the world." And then James whistles behind him, and he goes forward, and he gets in the way of Gordon. And Edward's at the back of Gordon's train, and then Henry appears, and then you realise that there's nobody else.
Yeah, that they're all there.
That's apart from Mysterious Engine, who's pulling a train. Yeah, there's just one train in the corner. It's the only time they slipped up.
It's Marklin.
It's Marklin!
Oh, see, I thought it might be Ferdinand.
Yeah, I thought it was.
Because he already in season 18, so yeah.
No, not a good.
I think something it's not so much the animation
stuff. I think it's more like the directing choices, but such as that bit with the sad story of Henry bit where the Fat Controller sort of like causes the camera to change angle, and he sort of moves across the screen. He's like 3, 2, 1.
Yeah.
I thought stuff like that, and what's it? Thomas going into the platform during the song segment with like a bunch of wagons, and then James comes whistling in the other direction.
Just scream.
Yeah, just screaming. It's more natural. I think everything's just more natural this time.
I did find it a little bit weird about how I think the flashback to the sad story of Henry was really effective, but I'm pretty sure they've changed the canon now, because they did it in Blue Mountain Mystery, and they bricked him up there, didn't they? And now they...
Well, they didn't say they didn't brick him up in this one.
Wait,
So, I don't think
I never denied breaking him up in this.
they didn't. They just said that he stepped in the tunnel.
I think I'm
Yeah.
thinking about, because there's a book I think that they brought out to accompany it, and they said they had to pull him out with a rope.
They
And
actually,
it
yeah, they
worked.
actually
Yes,
succeeded
but it
in pulling
doesn't
him
work
out.
in the show. Noted by the fact that they pull him with a rope and it doesn't work.
I don't know, if the Fat Controller joined in, he could make all the difference.
But doctor's orders, George. Doctor's orders.
That is true. Sequences were your favourite in the whole special, would you say? Is there any particular favourite?
I think the final chase climax thing, or maybe Thomas's earlier attempts at shunting. I don't know. It's hard to choose.
The
There's
painting scene.
Yeah, the painting scene. There's
Oh,
only
yeah.
one in my mind. You can cut the rest of the show, but the painting scene was beautiful.
Yeah.
The fact that you have a line where he goes, the Fat Controller painted his engine the colour he liked to see on his railway. They paint him pink,
Yeah.
and he looks like it.
So sad. So depressing.
And then they
That's it,
show
right?
the blue, and he goes, ah. And then they paint. The paint goes on his nose, and his nose moves in the.
Yeah.
But people always say, so what do the faces feel like? And I always think that's a weird question to ask. And now I want to know the answer.
Yeah.
But
The straight lining was an
Yeah.
extremely impressive feat on behalf of that man.
you can see how
Yeah.
smug he looked afterwards. You can see the smugness on his face.
I feel sorry for the guy on the other side, who's obviously
Yeah.
just done the same
Yes.
job.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, maybe he just fucked up and he didn't want anyone else to see it.
It was like you were saying, Jake. How does someone sustain a job like that?
Yeah. What I mean, that's not going to put bread on the table, right? He's got to go home. Presumably, as a
Yeah.
family need.
He's not very good. Well, I mean, he is very good, but if that's all he can do, then why did they have him on, really? I mean, if that's all he's good for, I think they could train somebody else who's good at other things and that.
So
That's
you're
just me
saying
being pedantic.
he's a bit disappointing.
No, I
Is
mean,
it?
everybody around him seemed pretty impressed, but
He
You know.
painted a pink undercoat very well as well.
he did. Well, he helped. I'm not sure if he, did that on his own.
The entire pink undercoat.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's good.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess we'll sort of summarize our opinions on The Adventure Begins as a whole. I mean, I think it's quite clear we all enjoyed it, but is there any particular things you guys would like to say about it?
That crash was awesome.
Yeah, I was quite fond of everything, quite frankly. There were some little weak points that I have with it, but on the whole, it was exactly. It exceeded my expectations. I'll put it like that. It was better than I thought it could have been.
I think that the main thing was the fact that they respected so much of the past that they weren't unwilling to push themselves out there and do something slightly different. And I think it's a sort of respectful disrespect that sort of made me enjoy it as a whole.
Do you think if they'd extended it out to the general 1 hour time limit, that may have improved, well, allowed them to improve upon some of the flaws?
No.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't know what they would have done extra.
Adding more would have just drugged it out. I mean, you could have, for instance, the Edward Gordon and Henry bit, but that's not necessary. That's not Thomas. It's about Thomas's
Yeah.
growth as a character.
Yeah.
So I don't think it would be necessary, really.
Yeah.
What would be cool is if they'd have put on the DVD the individual stories and they just animated them with Ringo Starr narration.
And bothered to make Henry in his old shape, because everybody knows that that's a big sin. I mean,
they are so lazy. Those people are.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
If they can make Sam
five seconds.
They make Sam. They make Sam for no reason, who is not even going to be in the season. They're not making Henry the first. What hell, Bell?
I know. I feel like going on to literally everybody's YouTube page and commenting exactly how I feel about Henry's first shape not being in.
I feel like my opinion should be shared with everybody, regardless of the practical reasons why it shouldn't have been done and the fact it made no difference whatsoever to the plotter.
And furthermore, if you don't agree with my opinion, then you're not a real Thomas fan.
You are not a tanky, and you will go to Thomas Hell, called the Other Railway.
Cerulean.
I quite agree. Well said, co-host Jake. This is what Spin Radio stands with me. This is what
I think Dan just sent us into a cerulean flavored hell.
But apart from that, jolly good.
Yes.
It was about
question time. I quite like this question. If you lived on Sodor, what railway job would you like to have, and where would you live on Sodor?
Might I answer this first?
Yes.
Go on then.
I would have the job of railway controller. I would live in Stately Hat Manor.
You have to do the voice.
I would live in Stately Hat Manor.
There we go.
Every day I would go to the station and catch Edward's choo-choo train up to Tidmouth, sit in my office, have a pie, go home, have a roast, sleep. It would be a simple life.
What about you, Jake? Where would you live, and what job would you have?
I don't know. I think I'd quite like to work at the Steamworks, or the Works, I guess. I'm going to go with the Works because the Steamworks is a bit but yeah, a Krogan's Gate, that'd be fun. You'd probably get to see all kinds of interesting stories. You'd see the aftermath anyway. It'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Always a story. George, if I can guess yours.
Yes, go.
George,
guess.
You are going to say Whiff's waste dump, aren't you?
How did you know?
Because you like Whiff.
Because recycling is cool.
Yes.
I've thought about this answer, actually. I put a little bit of thought into this. I would be a guard on Skarloey Railway trains, and I would live somewhere on the Skarloey Railway, because I think that would be quite nice and scenic. Yeah.
Okay.
If Audrey was still alive, what would think season 18 and the adventure begins?
I feel like that's a question for Audrey.
I feel like that too.
And speaking as his servant on Earth, I can quite happily.
Yes, Daniel.
Praise Audrey.
Brace yourself. Had a word with Audrey, and he says, "No, I agree. I like to imagine he would have seen it as an improvement, but I also think he probably would have still thought, well, it's not what I wrote."
Yeah, I from every interview I've seen with him, he really doesn't like the direction that things have gone in terms of adding new characters and new stories. So surely sort of 18 years of Genesis in that of evolution, it's all kind of devolved now. You can't look at the new stuff and look at season 1 and go, oh wow, that's just what he would have written, or oh, he would have liked that.
Yeah.
There's no point of comparison. It is a genuine improvement and things are going in the right direction, but I don't think Audrey would care.
They're not the same, but I think the show's better for that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think the fact it can evolve means that it will survive. Whereas Audrey sort of burnt himself after 26 quite a lot. But it's sort of, there's a point where you can't, where you as a person cannot see beyond what the series or what Thomas the Tank Engine can be, whereas the TV show sort of can. It has progressed. Fabian's Jake says from season 1, season 8, season 16, season 8, Sodor's Legend of the Lost Treasure with John Hurt. John Hurt!
And Eddie Redmayne.
Do you think he would have liked the fact that John Hurt is in Thomas?
I don't think he'd care.
Yeah, realistically, no.
Yeah, I think he'd probably try and distance himself from the show as much as possible.
He'd write books in anger.
He would have.
Fight the show.
4 angry engines.
Engines on television. Recently, I've heard news from the region that a television company has come to the rally and slaughtered my children.
See, Audrey to me doesn't even seem like the person who would have a television in his house.
Yeah.
Like he would be much more involved in his books and such.
And his model railway.
Yeah,
Railway
definitely.
Series 43,
Yeah.
Thomas and his friends, and blasphemy!
And take it away.
Because he did put so much into it that it's a very different show.
Yeah.
I like to think that he would appreciate like the CGI reimagining of Adventure Begins, because that's his stuff.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That is very much his. But he still wouldn't like certain aspects, like Henry sticking in because of Henry being scared of the rain. I don't think. Question, please.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
How many cream buns could the Fat Controller eat in one sitting without getting stomachache?
There haven't been enough cream buns invented yet. I use the word invented with a heavy heart because they've had to actually reconstruct brand new styles of cream buns to satisfy his insatiable appetite. And they still haven't managed it. He always says, "Right, just one more." And they have to make another one. That's half of Sodor's industry.
So, in essence, he basically broke science by eating cream buns.
Well, he didn't break science, but Stephen Hawking's still confused over it.
Oh,
I'm well satisfied with that answer. I think probably, I mean, the Culty Fell probably isn't even a mountain anymore. It's just him, by this point.
Yeah.
You can see him from space. All that good stuff. Yep.
I'm gonna take a quick moment to shout out the Sir Topham Hatt Twitter. That's very good. Yeah.
There's a pleasant mix of funny stories and interesting railway tidbits. He's a real person.
I do like the Twitter. It is very good.
Yeah.
Right. Here's a question. If you were an engine, who would you be? So I presume a Thomas engine, not a class or something.
I would be Charlie, because my jokes are funny.
I'd be Stafford, so I can be electric. I'd be Diesel 10, just so I could kill at will.
There you go.
I would just kill at will.
Is this who we want to be or who we are?
Who you are.
Oh, who I am.
I'm Henry, probably. I'm very grumpy. I bitch about a lot of things.
You could
rain
be a
makes me
Duke.
stay in the shed.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd probably have to go. Yeah, probably Henry or Edward, I think.
There's a big leap between the two there, Jake.
Maybe.
No.
I think
they're
Gordon.
both the same. It's just one of them is old
Gordon.
and complains about it all the time.
Okay.
Honestly,
I would be Marion. No.
I'd go for Caroline the car.
I'm that classic of all Thomas characters, Tom Kipper.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the ballast spreader.
I do
he's
like
a
the
really
ballast
useful character.
What a moaner, eh? Have you been to his Christmas party?
The guy is a maniac.
Crazy times, man. Crazy.
Try not to rant, but what do you think of American engines being on Sodor?
don't care.
Good.
Yeah, I
This
think as long as they have character, as long as they bring something to the table, I really, you have to analyze that kind of a question by what will sell toys and what will be varying and interesting on the show. And that's kind of what they tried to test out the waters with Hero. That worked well. Japanese audience is huge. American audience is huge. Why not make toys and characters that are relatable to people in overseas markets?
What I do like about the way they're written, these characters, is the fact that they're usually visitors. So that Sodor is essentially this home to English to British railway types. And you can have visitors from everywhere, and that goes from Gator to Hero to Connor and Caitlin to Sam, the massive one, who I can't remember the class for. But they're visitors.
Just Sam, the massive one.
Yeah, but they're visitors, and that means that it means you can also increase the character base without having to use them.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay. That's a good question. What are you most looking forward to this year for Thomas's 70th anniversary?
I guess now that the Adventure Begins is done, Legend of the Lost Treasure.
Yeah. Wait, now I
think I was going to say, I think that the Adventure Begins is probably it.
Yeah.
I mean, I have high hopes for the new special and the return of some Railway Series characters, but I mean that was pretty much it. I think right there.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing what they do in the series actually.
Yeah.
Because unlike Legend of Lost Treasure, where we sort of know a lot of the surprises already, so we know that they are villains and all that stuff.
You've gone a bit crap again,
Have
Dan.
I?
So,
Bollocks. So I'm looking forward to the series because I know basically nothing about it. We already know quite a lot, or we know not a lot, but we know a few bits about Lost Treasure. We know nothing about the series. So I'm looking forward to what they do there.
Do you think there's any possibility any of the individual episodes will do anything to do with the 70th?
Yeah, I think so.
How do you mean?
Well, do you think they'll do anything, I suppose, related to the 70th, like a flashback episode or something vaguely acknowledging it?
I don't know. I think that you'll have more I don't know, doubt it.
Yeah, I can't think that they would. I really can't.
They're already sort of hinting to what they want to do already with the traditional-ish Thomas Annie and Clarabelle stories. I think that if they hadn't already happened, I would say I hope they do something like that.
Yeah.
We'll see. We don't know anything. Exciting.
Next question. Which class of engine would you like to see on the island of Sodor?
Ooh.
A lanky tank.
A what?
A lanky tank. A 242 from the Lancashire and Yorkshire Railway.
Okay.
They look really weird. I think it's Victorian-ish. They're slightly top-heavy. I imagine them sort of nose-diving every time they stop. They'd be great. And have two coaches called Carol and Bob.
Match that.
I'd like to see. Have any of you seen? I can't remember the class. I don't even know if it counts. It was a one-off engine, and it was kind of like part engine, part coach. It's sort of been stuck together.
The rail motor.
Yeah, the rail motor.
I think it's the Lancashire and Yorkshire rail motor.
Oh, that'd be interesting. I'd quite like to see the return of a long diesel character. A long green Grinch, yeah. No. I mean, I'd quite like to see the return of a multi-bogey diesel character. It's been so. I mean, we've just had all these shunters and shunters and shunters, and I think that the diesel cast has kind of been put on a shelf. Really, I think it's time for a big diesel that might threaten some of the bigger engines, because I think that could bring conflict and interest.
Going on from that, I'd like a high-speed train set. I don't care if it's an actual HST or any sort of, like an electrical multiple unit type thing.
Penny the Pendolino coming to a store near you.
Yes.
I'd go for a Deltic or maybe a Class 20. I don't know, 28 or something, a baby warship, something fun like that.
Yeah.
You can have a baby warship and have it be DieselD199's son.
Basically, all I'm saying is put Derek back in the show. It's what
Yes.
it's what everybody wants needs. Put Derek back.
Okay. I guess the last question we'll do is: have you ever been to a Day Out with Thomas event?
Yes.
No.
Yes, I have been to a Day Out with Thomas event. When I was younger, and I sort of stopped going. Well, I didn't stop going to Heritage Railways. I think I stopped going more to the Day Out with Thomas event. But yes, I have been.
I think I went. Yes, but the person, whenever someone was dressed up as the Fat Controller, that always used to scare me for some reason. So yeah, that was interesting.
See, in America, we don't usually have people dressed as the Fat Controller. We have like a Fat Controller costume with like a mask and everything.
God.
And it's terrifying. Why would you ever subject? It's like taking. I don't know if this is a thing in the UK as well, but it's like taking your kids to the mall to get their pictures taken with Santa. Like, it's the same. There's this frightening, imposing person, and you're putting your child right next to them and say, "Smile, smile," while this freak stands next to you.
No, but there's a difference,
Smile.
Jake. There's a difference. You were frightened of a man in a terrifying costume. George was frightened of a fat man.
Ah, right. Okay. In a funny hat, to be fair.
Yes.
The hat does not make someone scary.
He came
Whoever.
round with a Santa Claus sack offering people presents.
So you were scared of someone offering you free things.
Yes!
You are
Because it was the Fat Controller!
How dare you?
Beforehand, he was a tiny man on the TV. How did he get so big?
George, you don't deserve to
The
go
green
to
buns, we
Stockport
explained
now.
it.
No, you don't deserve this. You don't get off Sudrian radio this instant.
Oh, hey!
And with that, I think we conclude our first successful relaunch of the Sudrian. Don't you agree, co-host Dan? I mean,
I quite agree, co-host Jake. I'd like
it's
to
gone
thank
quite
our
well.
guests George and guest Mayoorhan for being on
Thank
the
you
show.
very much for coming on. Good times.
Unfortunately, Matt couldn't make it, but luckily our Matt couldn't make it either.
Yep. Easy trade-off there. Just fine.
It's alright, everyone's happy.
Yep. I guess next time we're going to have Keith Wickham and
Keith
Ian
and-
Q on.
And then we'll
Right.
play our new special game on the Skarloey Railway, where you get sent to the Skarloey Railway for a week.
Yes. Duncan drops a clanger and other stories. Yeah.
And then an incline explodes.
Ah. Hate it when that happens.
It is a bummer.
Just the worst. Okay, well, I think that wraps it up. Thanks everyone for watching.
Goodbye,
See you next
everybody.
time.
Stream.
Goodbye.
Bye.